This week, we were having a drink with friend of the pod and Foreign Office fellow Tom Jordan. He asked, how do we choose the pieces for analysis?
I said, basically, we choose a piece we've had a strong reaction to, either positive or negative, and then try and work out why. I sort of go into detective mode.
Analysis.
Incidentally, I have written a script for a musicologist-based murder mystery called Behind Bars, but the piece that has made me stop and start investigating most recently was Kerry Andrews' piece O Nata Lux. Written for unaccompanied choir, it's a 3 to 4 minute long piece suitable for performance in concerts or church. Written for the Ebor Singers in 2005. It's the opposite of the Servian Wall in Rome.
What's the Servian Wall, and how can a piece of music be opposite to a wall?
Well, the Servian Wall is a 10-metre high ancient battlement, originally built around the 4th century BC to defend the city of Rome. It has been allowed, unlike most of Rome, to fall into a state of disrepair, and people have been allowed to build whatever they want in and around it, including, in the main railway station, a section that incongruously makes up part of a MacDonalds dining counter.
I'm loving it.
That gross use of a Roman relic is an example of how not to interact with heritage and tradition. O Nata Lux is the opposite of this wall.
I see.
We're going to listen to the very opening and we'll hear a traditional element and how Andrew has reinvented it for today.
Sounds beautiful. Thanks to the London Oriana Choir for that clip.
It does indeed sound beautiful. We start with a chant-like intonation, a single voice outlining a simple melodic phrase that places us in the key and mood of the piece to come. These were absolutely 10 a penny in Renaissance and Baroque music. My personal favourite is at the beginning of the Monteverdi Vespers. I put a link in the description to a video of Alex Ashworth absolutely slaying one for John Eliot Gardner.
That clip is a real horn dog. I'd definitely recommend checking it out.
The intonation is a traditional element. However, chant is traditionally sung by lower voices, tenors, basses, and baritones like Mr. Ashworth there. The female voice is rarely heard in chant, perhaps as a hangover from chant being sung by Catholic priests, who remain famously male. So there's one updated tweak, a change of voice part. But then Kerry Andrew goes further. Rather than just leaving that intonation as the scene-setting opening statement, it becomes the backdrop for the entire rest of the piece. Sopranos sing it over and over, at their own time and tempi, creating a collage of beautiful, aleatoric singing.
Aleatoric?
Semi-scripted, partially improvised. The composer has created the opportunity for performers to shape the piece in the moment. Chanting has become a cutting-edge contemporary technique 1,000 years into its existence. Following that, the altos, tenors and basses of the choir sing the rest of the text, set basically syllabically, to some juicy chords, the first of which is made up of all those chant notes. All of those notes played at once, followed by a chord which has none of the chant notes in, this one. The new chord illuminates the chant, shedding new tonal light and representing the text as a result. This continues throughout the piece, the altos, tenors and basses moving the harmonic point of focus, so that we hear the chant in a new setting. Have a listen. At the very end of the piece, tradition and the present become explicit topics for discussion. The ATB parts take over the aleatoric element, shifting between two given notes and vowel sounds at will. It sounds like the wind to me. I quite like going you, 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 you. Anyway, that wind blows a change into the chant which shifts from being sung in Latin to English. O Nata Lux de Lumine becomes O Light, born of light. This makes it a macaronic text, meaning it includes more than one language, one of which is Latin.
Nothing to do with the French Prime Minister, then?
No,
Nor the delicious pasta?
alas, not. Kerry Andrew has met the choral church tradition where it is, acknowledged the elements of it that are ripe for reinvention, and using her fresh perspective, and shed new light on what those pre-existing elements, like chant, can be. And hers is a fresh perspective, sure in part because she is an interesting contemporary composer, but it's also worth remembering how few women have historically been involved in church music. Salisbury Cathedral became the first cathedral choir in the country to admit choristers, but that was in the 90s, and they were the first 700 years or so into that building's history. Shout out to my mum here, who wanted to play football and sing in the church choir, neither of which she was allowed to do because she was a girl. Composers like Kerry Andrew are part of that change happening to church music, and I think it's enormously magnanimous of figures like her to meet the church tradition where it is, compose using elements of the music that they would have been excluded from a generation or two before, and reinvent that in a sympathetic way, rather than building a gross Servian-walled MacDonalds or smashing up the place to destroy that oppressive history. Nata Lux sheds new light on the artefact it interacts with, church music, and shows how it can be relevant to the present day.